5 years after vanishing in a Nevada desert crash, Captain Amelia Hart, declared dead, emerges from the shadows to fly a daring rescue. Her return sparks a storm of questions, danger, and a past she can't outrun. Like and subscribe to the Silent Stories channel for more pulse-pounding tales. The Nevada desert howled under a bruised sky, lightning clawing at the horizon. Hank Grayson, alone in Lovelock's air traffic control tower, froze as his radio crackled to life. Mayday, this is November 35 Alpha. Requesting landing clearance. The voice was unmistakable. Amelia Hart, the pilot who'd vanished 5 years ago, declared dead in 2008. Hank's hand shook as he checked the radar. A single blip, descending fast through the storm. Identify yourself, he demanded, his voice tight. The reply was calm, edged with steel. Captain Amelia Hart. Clear the runway. Impossible. Her Cessna had disappeared over the desert, no wreckage, no trace. Yet here she was, her plane screaming through the tempest. The Cessna touched down, skidding on the rain-slicked runway. A figure emerged, tall, drenched, her flight jacket clinging to her frame. Amy strode toward the tower, her green eyes fierce. I need a medevac team, she said, brushing past Hank. Injured hiker, critical condition. Coordinates are 40.179, minus 118.473. Hank stared, his mind reeling. The ghost pilot was alive. He called the sheriff, relaying Amy's instructions. She stood by the window, watching the storm, her face unreadable. You're supposed to be dead, Hank said, his voice barely above a whisper. Amy's lips twitched. I got better. Call it in, Hank. The medevac chopper launched, and Amy sank into a chair, exhaustion carving lines into her face. 5 years earlier, Amy Hart was a legend, ex-Air Force, fearless, flying charters across the West. But her life was a cage. Her fiancé, Daniel Reese, a charming real estate tycoon, hid a monster within. His control tightened like a noose, his fist leaving bruises she concealed with long sleeves. On that fateful 2008 flight, she wasn't heading to Salt Lake City. She was escaping. Amy had planned it meticulously. She flew low, below radar, landing in a remote canyon. She staged a crash, smashed instruments, scattered debris, and vanished. The desert swallowed her Cessna, and Sarah Klein was born. She built a cabin, lived off the land, and became a ghost. For 5 years, she was free, until Ethan. Ethan was a hiker, crumpled at the base of a cliff, his leg shattered. Amy found him on a routine trek, his pulse weak, his face pale. She splinted his leg, built a shelter, but he needed a hospital. Her Cessna, hidden under tarps, was her only option. She flew through the storm, her hands steady, her past clawing at her mind. Now, in the tower, the weight of her return settled in. The media would come. The FAA would dig. And Daniel, he'd hear her name. Sheriff Tom Delgado arrived, his eyes narrowing at Amy. You let us grieve, he said, his voice raw. Why? Amy met his gaze. Daniel Reese. He was going to kill me. Tom's jaw clenched. He'd known Daniel, shaken his hand. But Amy's fear was real, her scars hidden but deep. You faked your death, he said. That's a crime. Amy didn't blink. I saved a life tonight. That's gotta count. Tom didn't argue. Ethan was stable, thanks to her. By morning, Lovelock was a circus. News vans clogged the airstrip, reporters shouting. Hashtag ghost pilot trended, theories swirling, hoax, conspiracy, miracle. Amy stayed in a motel, under watch, her mind racing. Daniel was out there. She'd tracked him years ago, using burner phones. He was in California now, remarried, powerful. But he'd never let her go. At 2 a.m., Amy slipped out, driving to a desert lookout. The stars were sharp, the air cold. She needed to think. Gravel crunched headlights. A black SUV stopped, and Daniel stepped out, his baseball cap low, his voice venomous. You can't hide forever, Amy. She drew her knife. I'm not running anymore. She drove him off, her pistol's warning shot echoing. But he'd be back. At the sheriff's office, Tom noticed her tension. What's going on? He asked. Amy shook her head, silent. The FAA was coming, and the media was digging. A reporter found her old logs, questioning the crash. Was it staged? Was she a fugitive? The FAA hearing was brutal. Investigator Carla Ruiz laid out the charges. Fraud, falsified records. Amy's lawyer, Lee Sitchin, fought back. She was escaping abuse. She had no choice. The room buzzed, reporters scribbling. Amy's eyes scanned the crowd. A man in a baseball cap lingered. Her stomach twisted. That night, Amy met Ethan in a canyon. He tracked her, his leg braced but his spirit intact. "You saved me," he said. "Let me help you." He offered a map, a route to an Idaho cabin. Amy hesitated. Trust was dangerous, but time was short. Daniel's SUV had been spotted near her motel. The hearing's second day shifted the tide. Lisa presented hospital records, restraining orders. Amy was a survivor, not a criminal. #Justice for Amy trended. But Amy didn't care about the court of public opinion. Daniel was closing in. She'd seen his SUV circling the courthouse, his shadow everywhere. At midnight, she was airborne. Her Cessna roared, the desert fading below. Ethan's map was in her bag, a new ID ready. She'd vanish again, become someone new. But headlights flashed below Daniel, tailing her takeoff. Her heart pounded, but the sky was hers. She banked hard, disappearing into the night. Amy's flight path took her north, the Cessna's engine a steady hum against the silence of the stars. She kept low, avoiding radar, her instincts honed from years of evasion. Idaho was her destination, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she trust Ethan? His offer was generous, but generosity could be a trap. She learned that the hard way with Daniel. Below, the desert gave way to jagged mountains, their peaks silver in the moonlight. Amy's mind drifted to the early days of her disappearance. Building the cabin had been grueling, hauling timber, digging a foundation, learning to hunt. She traded her pilot's wings for a survivalist's grit, but the sky always called. The Cessna, her one indulgence, was her lifeline, a reminder of who she'd been. A flicker on the instrument panel snapped her back. The fuel gauge was dropping faster than it should. She cursed under her breath, checking the tanks. A leak? Sabotage? Daniel's face flashed in her mind, his smug grin, his calculating eyes. Had he tampered with the plane during her time in Lovelock? She'd been careful, but not careful enough. The engine sputtered, and Amy's pulse spiked. She scanned the terrain below, a patchwork of valleys and ridges, no clear landing spot. Her training kicked in. Prioritize, assess, act. She adjusted the throttle, coaxing every second from the dying engine. A flat stretch appeared ahead, a dry riverbed. It wasn't ideal, but it was her only shot. The landing was rough, the Cessna skidding across gravel, wings scraping rock. Amy braced, her jaw clenched, until the plane lurched to a stop. Silence fell, broken only by her ragged breathing. She grabbed her bag, knife, pistol, Ethan's map, and climbed out. The night was cold, her breath visible in the air. She had to move. Footsteps crunched in the distance. Amy froze, crouching behind a boulder. A flashlight beam swept the riverbed, and Daniel's voice carried on the wind. "You can't keep running, Amy. I always find you." Her blood ran cold. He'd followed her, tracked her somehow. A GPS tag on the plane? A tip from someone in Lovelock? It didn't matter now. She slipped into the shadows, moving silently, her years in the wilderness sharpening her senses. Daniel was close, his flashlight bobbing. She circled wide, using the terrain to her advantage. The map in her bag pointed to a trailhead 5 miles north. If she could reach it, she'd have a chance. But Daniel wasn't alone. Another set of footsteps echoed, heavier, deliberate. Amy's mind raced. 2 against 1, in the dark, with her plane grounded. She needed a plan. The riverbed led to a narrow canyon, a choke point. If she could lure them there, she could even the odds. She left a deliberate trail, scuffed dirt, a dropped water bottle, and doubled back, climbing a low ridge to watch. Daniel took the bait, his flashlight following her trail. The second man, stockier, carried a rifle. Hard muscle, no doubt. Amy's grip tightened on her knife. She wasn't the scared woman who'd fled 5 years ago. She'd survived the desert, outwitted death. She could outwit them. The canyon was her trap. She rigged a rockfall, loose stones balanced on a ledge, tied with cord from her bag. As Daniel and his man entered, she yanked the cord, sending boulders crashing down. The stocky man shouted, pinned under rubble, while Daniel dove for cover. Amy moved fast, her pistol drawn, closing the distance. "Drop it," she said, her voice steady, the barrel aimed at Daniel's chest. He froze, his flashlight illuminating his face, older, harder, but still the same predator. "You're making a mistake," he said, his tone smooth. "I just want to talk." "You never just talk," Amy spat. "Step back." He complied, hands raised, but his eyes gleamed with calculation. She tied his wrist with cord, her movement swift. The stocky man groaned, still trapped. She didn't have long. "Why now?" she asked, her voice low. "Why come after me?" Daniel smirked. "You're my unfinished business, Amy. You don't get to walk away." She didn't respond. She dragged him to the riverbed, securing him to a tree. The stocky man was out cold, no immediate threat. She searched Daniel's pockets, finding a burner phone and a GPS tracker. He bugged her plane, just as she'd feared. She smashed the tracker, her anger flaring. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky blood red. Amy hiked to the trailhead, her body aching but her resolve ironclad. Ethan's map was accurate. A dirt road led to a hidden cabin, stocked with supplies. She'd made it, but the victory felt hollow. Daniel was down, but men like him had resources, connections. She'd need to keep moving. At the cabin, she found a radio and tuned into a local frequency. News of her escape was everywhere, her face plastered on every channel, her story a wildfire. The FAA had issued a warrant, but public sentiment was shifting. Hashtag Justice for Amy was gaining traction, fueled by Lisa's leaks about Daniel's abuse. Amy allowed herself a moment of hope. Ethan arrived that evening, his truck rattling up the road. "You're a hard woman to find," he said, grinning. Amy didn't smile. "You sure you're on my side?" she asked, her hand on her knife. He raised his hands. "I owe you my life. That's all you need to know." He handed her a burner phone, preloaded with contacts. Safe houses, allies, people who helped women like her. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. Amy studied him, her instincts warring. Trust was a risk, but so was solitude. She nodded, pocketing the phone. "I need to disappear again," she said. "But this time, I'm not running scared." They planned her next move at Canada, maybe, or Alaska. Somewhere cold, remote, where Daniel's reach couldn't follow. Ethan offered to scout routes, his knowledge of the backcountry invaluable. Amy felt a flicker of gratitude, but she kept her guard up. The desert had taught her that. Days later, word came that Daniel had been arrested. The stocky man, a hired thug, had turned on him, spilling details of Daniel's obsession, how he tracked Amy for years, hired private investigators, even bribed FAA officials to keep tabs on her old call sign. The evidence was damning, and Lisa was building a case to clear Amy's name. But Amy wasn't waiting for justice. She flew out at dawn, her Cessna patched up with Ethan's help. The sky stretched endless before her, a canvas of possibility. She was no longer Sarah Klein, nor Amelia Hart. She was something new, forged in the crucible of survival. The ghost pilot soared, the horizon her only home, with Daniel's shadow fading in her wake. The Idaho cabin was a temporary refuge, a place to catch her breath. Amy spent her days planning, her nights listening to the radio for updates. Daniel's arrest was headline news, his empire crumbling under the weight of his crimes. The thug's testimony had opened a floodgate. Other women came forward, their stories mirroring Amy's. She felt a strange mix of relief and rage. She wasn't alone, but she'd paid a higher price than most. Ethan visited when he could, bringing supplies and news. He was a drifter, a man who'd walked away from his own past, a failed marriage, a corporate job that chewed him up. Amy saw herself in him, but trust was still a bridge she crossed cautiously. "Why help me?" she asked one night, the fire crackling between them. "You didn't hesitate to save me," he said. "That's rare." His eyes held hers, steady but not pushy. She nodded, letting the silence speak. The FAA case was unraveling. Lisa's relentless advocacy, backed by public pressure, forced the agency to reconsider. Amy's staged crash was reclassified as an act of self-preservation, not fraud. Her pilot's license was suspended, not revoked, a slap on the wrist. But Amy didn't care about flying commercially again. The sky was hers, not theirs. Daniel's trial loomed, and Amy knew she couldn't stay in Idaho forever. The cabin, though safe, was a cage of its own. She needed to move, to keep ahead of the ghosts that still chased her. Ethan suggested a route through British Columbia, a network of safe houses run by a group called Haven. They helped women like Amy, survivors, runaways, ghosts. She packed light, her bag holding only essentials, knife, pistol, a new ID as Claire Morgan. Ethan drove her to a small airstrip, where a friend's plane waited, a Piper Cub, older than her Cessna but reliable. "You don't have to go alone," Ethan said, his voice soft. Amy shook her head. "I've been alone a long time. I'm good at it." But as she climbed into the cockpit, she felt a pang. Ethan had been a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone was Daniel. She handed him a scrap of paper with a number. "If I need you, I'll call." The Piper lifted off, the Canadian border a faint line on the horizon. Amy flew low, the mountains a jagged embrace below. Haven's first safe house was a farm outside Vancouver, run by a woman named Mara, a former cop who'd seen too much. Mara greeted Amy with a firm handshake and a knowing look. "You're not the first to come through," she said. "You won't be the last." Life at the farm was quiet but not soft. Amy worked, tending crops, fixing fences. Her hands busy while her mind settled. Mara shared stories of other women, their escapes, their triumphs. Amy listened, her own story spilling out in fragments. For the first time, she felt part of something larger, a network of resilience. But the past wasn't done with her. A month into her stay, Mara received a tip, someone asking questions in town, a man with Daniel's description. He'd made bail, his connections deeper than Amy had feared. She packed that night, Mara's warnings ringing in her ears. "He's not the type to give up," Mara said. "But neither are you." Amy flew again, this time to a remote Alaskan island. The Haven network had a contact there, a fisherman named Lars who lived off the grid. His cabin was perched on a cliff, the ocean a restless beast below. Lars was gruff but kind, his eyes carrying the weight of his own secrets. He didn't ask about Amy's past, and she didn't offer. Alaska was harsher than Nevada, the cold seeping into her bones. She learned to fish, to navigate the tides, her pilot's instincts adapting to the sea. But Daniel's shadow lingered. A package arrived one day, no return address, a photo of her old Cessna, with a note, "I'm still watching." Her blood froze. He'd found her, or someone had. Lars noticed her tension. "Trouble follows you," he said, not unkindly. "You want to face it or keep running?" Amy didn't answer right away. She'd run for 5 years, survived, fought. But facing Daniel meant stepping back into the world she'd left, risking everything she'd built. She called Ethan, the burner phone signal faint. "He's here," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. Ethan didn't hesitate. "I'm coming. Hold tight." 2 days later, he arrived by boat, his face weathered but determined. He brought news. Daniel's trial was collapsing, witnesses intimidated, evidence disappearing. "He's got people everywhere," Ethan said. "But so do you." Amy made a choice. Running was survival, but fighting was freedom. She and Ethan planned a trap, using Haven's network. They leaked a false location, a cabin in the Yukon, knowing Daniel would bite. He did. Amy waited in the Yukon, the cabin rigged with cameras, Haven operatives nearby. When Daniel arrived, smug and alone, she faced him. "You're done," she said, her pistol steady. "The world knows who you are now." Daniel lunged, but Haven's team moved faster, restraining him. The cameras caught everything, his threats, his confession. The footage went viral. #Justice for Amy, a global roar. Daniel was convicted, his empire dismantled. Amy's name was cleared, her story a beacon for others. She didn't return to the States. Alaska became her home, the sky her refuge. She flew for Haven, delivering supplies, ferrying survivors. The ghost pilot was no myth, she was a force, her wings carrying her beyond the reach of any shadow. But the Alaskan winters were relentless, and Amy's resolve was tested daily. The isolation of the island, while safe, gnawed at her. She missed the open desert, the vastness that had once shielded her. Lars taught her the rhythms of the sea, but it wasn't the sky. Flying for Haven kept her sharp, but each mission reminded her of the life she'd left behind. One night, a storm battered the island, waves crashing against the cliffs. Amy sat by the radio, listening to Haven's chatter. A new survivor needed transport, a woman fleeing a cartel in Mexico. The mission was risky, night flight, rough weather, a border crossing. Amy volunteered. She wasn't running anymore, but she wasn't hiding either. The flight was treacherous, the Piper Cub bucking against the wind. Amy's hands were steady, her eyes scanning the horizon for patrol planes. She landed in a hidden clearing, the survivor, a young woman named Sophia, waiting with a Haven operative. Sophia's eyes were wide, haunted, but she climbed aboard without a word. Amy felt a kinship, a shared understanding of fear and fight. Back in Alaska, Sophia's story unraveled. She'd been a courier, forced into service by threats against her family. Her escape had cost her everything: home, identity, safety. Amy listened, her own scars aching. "You're free now," she told Sophia. "That's what matters." Sophia nodded, but her eyes held doubt. Freedom, Amy knew, was a fragile thing. Haven's network grew, and Amy became their best pilot. She flew across borders, dodging authorities, delivering hope to those who'd lost it. Each mission was a defiance of her past, a middle finger to Daniel's memory. But the photo, and notes still haunted her. Had someone else sent it? Was Daniel's reach longer than she'd thought? Ethan stayed in touch, his calls a lifeline. He'd settled in Vancouver, working with Haven, his drifter days behind him. "You're a legend," he told her once, his voice warmed through the static. Amy laughed, a rare sound. "Legends die. I'm just stubborn." One spring, a new threat emerged. A Haven safe house was raided, operatives arrested. Rumors swirled of a leak, someone feeding information to the cartels. Amy's instinct screamed, Daniel's allies, perhaps, or a new enemy. She met with Mara, now a Haven leader, in a Seattle diner. "We need you to go dark," Mara said. "No flights, no contact, until we find the mole." Amy hated the idea, but she agreed. She returned to Lars's cabin, lying low, her world shrinking to the cliffs and the sea. The waiting was torture, her mind replaying every mission, every face. Was Sophia the leak? Ethan? Trust, once again, felt like a trap. Weeks later, Mara called. The mole was caught, a low-level operative, bribed by a cartel. Haven was safe, but Amy's caution lingered. She flew again, her missions more guarded, her eyes always scanning for shadows. The ghost pilot had survived too much to let her guard down now.